Alright, today we are going to be discussing John Mayer and the AnalogMan King of Tone. This is something I see get asked in the comments and in my Instagram DMs a bit to actually further discuss John's use of the King of Tone, because this is one of the more fabled overdrives. The absurdly long waitlist has kind of made it a bit of an unobtainium pedal, and then on sites like Reverb, for example, the pedal is very, very expensive. Speaking of waitlist, mine is actually has been up for a while, so I gotta still get off my butt and actually order my own King of Tone, because my name has come up on the waitlist, so I got to get to doing that maybe after I'm done making this video. But today I thought we would just discuss John Mayer and the AnalogMan King of Tone all in one video. It's something I've discussed on the channel a bit before in other longer, more in-depth videos in John's overdrive history, but not as its own video. So today we're going to dive into John Mayer and the AnalogMan King of Tone, because this is an interesting pedal. It seems like it'd be something that John would really like and really use a lot in terms of the kind of concept of the circuitry, but it's not a pedal that we've seen John actually with all that much. Now, the first thing I want to discuss in today's video is actually the version of the AnalogMan King of Tone that we've seen John with. I'm sure John owns at least one version of the version for the current version of the AnalogMan King of Tone. However, the one that we've seen him with is the version 2, which was, I believe, built between 2003 and 2005, which would line up with the very first time we've ever seen John with the King of Tone. And this version is a little bit different than the version 4, so just to read a little bit from the description here for you guys so you understand a little bit of the differences between this version and the modern version, which I believe the modern version to be the superior pedal in pretty much every way. But basically this one here has a on and off switch on the left and then a channel switcher on the right side, and you have a yellow or bright red LED. Basically it does a clean boost and more of an overdrive in one pedal. It has a distortion knob, a tone knob, and 2 volume knobs, so you can only control the distortion or gain amount on the one side for both. You can't have it set for 2 kind of independent sides on the AnalogMan King of Tone version 2, then 2 independent volume knobs, and then 1 tone control as well. So 2 volume knobs, master, drive, and tone. There is also a treble boost knob on the inside of the pedal, and then you can see on their website there is the knob that you actually use to change the treble boost on there. And then there are a few different dip switches inside as well, like there kind of always is some additional options for you to actually select and further sculpt your tone with AnalogMan King of Tone. But just for the purposes of today's video, this is the version that John is using. It doesn't quite have the feature set and the full tone capabilities that the more modern version has, so don't run out and go and buy a version 2. Just, you know, put your name on the wait list if you haven't already to try and get the more modern version of the King of Tone. It'll do the same thing, but even better from my understanding of the circuit and the pedal at least. Alright, the earliest that I can pinpoint to seeing John with the King of Tone is during some footage of the recording sessions of Continuum. Now, this footage is pretty interesting because it's kind of pieced apart, but I'm going to try and edit it together for you guys so you can see kind of in one fluid motion what I'm going to try and describe what's going on. Basically, for the Continuum sessions, the John Mayer Trio pedal board served as the foundation for all of kind of John's tones, and then he, went from there. He started with the trio tones and the trio as a base, then he expanded from there on during the process of recording. So you see in the studio, John has the John Mayer Trio pedal board in front of him, and he reaches down and pulls off the Keeley modded BD2, and then he reaches for the AnalogMan King of Tone version 2, which I assume was to swap and add that on the pedal board instead of the BD2, so then he had kind of a 2-channel pedal on there just to help sculpt tones with the vintage TS-808 as well to kind of help deliver some of the tones. Now, in terms of the Continuum recording sessions, it's completely impossible to say for certainty what you're hearing when, unless you get something like where with, I believe it was Sweetwater, did kind of like a breakdown of the tones for slow dancing and kind of what John used for gear. Unless we get some more details like that, it's impossible to say exactly when and if we are hearing the King of Tone on the Continuum record, but it's worth noting John had it in the studio and he was actually placing it on his board to probably run some, tracks with it, to play some guitar on, obviously. So there's a very good chance, I think, that the King of Tone is somewhere on Continuum. Now, besides the King of Tone making an appearance during the Continuum studio sessions, we don't really see it again until about the Born and Raised in Paradise Valley eras. Now, in the kind of behind-the-scenes footage that John actually released during the making of Paradise Valley, some just insanely cool footage in all the different sessions. In the very first one, you see John goes into his kind of one of his pedal drawers and opens it all up, And you can see just a bunch of really cool pedals in this shot. I've actually been tempted to make a video just breaking down every single pedal you see kind of in the pedal drawer. I thought that would be kind of fun. But you can see the King of Tone is in there kind of front and center among a Smoky Signal tubeless overdrive, for example, in there. So just a bunch of different tube screamers, pedals like that. And then you see John with the King of Tone version 2 in there. So again, it's a pedal he has with him kind of, it seems at this point, in a bit more of a studio context and as something he's got in there to use when he feels like it, but at this point it hasn't made it actually on a live board of his quite yet.
This is the pedal rig. I'm a collector. I'm a
Now, around the Born and Raised in Paradise Valley era as well, we actually have this shot of John where he's sitting beside the Dumble Steel String Singer 002 on top of an Alessandro cabinet, and he's got some pedals on the floor kind of in front of the amplifiers. Looks like he's doing some sort of studio recording sessions again. The AnalogMan King of Tone version 2 is on the floor there in between a Keeley Katana version 1 and a TS-808. Seems very much kind of within the context of that timeline as well. John was experimenting with the TS-10 and the TS-808 again at this point too, kind of swapping back and forth between the two different tube screamers, clearly trying to experiment with a bit of his tone. But the pedal makes another resurface here in this shot, and this shot is one that has always kind of bugged me because I can't trace it that far back. I've been able to trace it to a Pinterest post, back in like 2018, but that's it. It's one of those photos that appeared on Pinterest and then, you know, can't trace it back any further, even doing a reverse image search on Google. Trail ends there, unfortunately. But again, it seems to be another pedal that is in the studio kind of context, at least, seems to be hanging around. Now, I am happy to say we actually do see it on one of John's boards, but again, in a studio context, not in an actual live performance, which is something I think is kind of puzzling, to be honest. In 2014, Barbra Streisand would release Come Rain or Come Shine. John would provide some vocals and a really beautiful guitar solo for that song as well. The board John brought to the studio sessions was a Boss TU3, the King of Tone version 2, a TS-10, and a Way Huge Octopus Mark II. Now, here is where the hope would be that the tones you are hearing that made it onto the record would maybe incorporate the King of Tone in some capacity, as especially this version has a little bit more maybe design as a cleaner boost. Maybe John kind of was using that as one pedal that would do kind of two jobs of two different pedals he might normally bring to a pedal board to complement the tube screamer. The Keeley Katana as the clean boost, and then a lighter overdrive like the Keeley modded BD2, the Marshall Blues Breaker, or the Klon Centaur kind of around this time as well. But the King of Tone could kind of cover both of those things with one pedal on the board, and then of course pushing all into the TS-10. Now, when it comes to what John actually used for the solo performance, again, you can't say for 100% certainty if the King of Tone was used in some sort of capacity in combination with the TS-10, because near the end of the video talking about the making of the song, you see Barbara is talking with John and they're talking about the timing of when he's going to come in for the solo, and you get just a brief kind of glimpse of the pedal board in the bottom of the footage, and the TS-10 is on for sure. You can see that the LED is glowing, and what's kind of funny about this is that we've seen a couple, at least John has one TS-10 where the LED appears to have been changed from more kind of bright, almost green color, which is pretty interesting, but that you can tell because it's very bright. The TS-10 is on. Very hard to tell, but it doesn't look like in these shots here the King of Tone is on for either channel. I feel like you'd be able to see the bright yellow or red LEDs going off. Not as bright as the ones in the TS-10, but enough that you could tell that it was on. So for at least this point in the video, it doesn't look like the King of Tone was on, but of course for the actual track that they eventually did lay down, maybe John did use the clean boost side or just a lighter OD to push the TS-10 just a little bit more. It's possible, but this is the best I've been able to kind of try and figure out for you guys. And if at this point in the video you're hoping now I say, but live we did see John using the King of Tone and here's him stepping on it or something really awesome like that, unfortunately, I can't. The King of Tone is one of those really weird pedals where it's such a well-known, well-revered circuit and pedal. Like Mike from AnalogMan is an absolute genius with what he did with the Blues Breaker circuit and really evolved it and turned it into a very unique thing. But it's just a pedal that John really has seemed to use in the studio, but not live, which is, like I've said, pretty perplexing that it's been around, but not enough to make it onto a board for a live show. But I've never seen it on John's board in any of these other kind of scenarios. These are all kind of the shots I've discussed in the video where we've actually seen John with it. So unfortunately, there is nothing else to really point out with the King of Tone and John's use of it. So there you guys go. That is the kind of history of John with AnalogMan King of Tone. It's kind of hard to see John's use of the King of Tone because there's nothing concrete. It's been around, but we don't have anything concrete at all to actually say in terms of his use. And I really wish I could have said something more or had something cooler to show you guys that I was able maybe even to find in trying to make this video. But unfortunately, this is just the reality, but still kind of cool to see the pedal around with John. As like I've said, it's a pedal that a lot of people have tried to get. It's got an absurd weight list, so something kind of cool where at least this is just one single video where if you were curious of John's use of it or want a quick reference, you can at least go to this video instead of having to go through like one of my hour-long documentaries on John's overdrive pedal history or something like that. So I thought this would still be a cool video nonetheless. Thank you guys so much for watching. If there are any other pedals you want to see me make just kind of more individual videos like this on and do a little bit of a deeper dive too into John's use and history with them, let me know in the comments down below as always. But thanks again for watching. Take care. I'll see you on the next one.